Dear participants of the meeting, I am happy to welcome you at this annual general shareholders meeting of public company Bashneft. I'd like to remind you that in accordance with the federal law and the provision, and the federal law on the joint stock companies and the company charter, the functions of the audit commission is being performed by the registrar of the company, AO Registry Company, through its UFA affiliates. In accordance with point 3.1 of the charter of the company, the chairman over this meeting is the chairman of the board of the company, myself, Alexei Texler. I suggest that we should start this meeting. Now, the presentation about the quorum and about the results of the registration, about the legality of the meeting, and to explain the voting procedure will be done by the chairman of the audit commission, Nikolai Abramov. Please. Dear shareholders, dear members of the chair, for the participation in the general shareholders meeting of the public company, the oil joint stock company Bashneft, as of the 14th p.m. today, the shareholders and their legal representatives have registered who own the following number of the voting shares: 134,719,796, which amounts to 91.13% out of the outstanding voting shares of the company. In terms of subpoint number 1 of item 15, the related party transaction, the quorum is 77.7%. The quorum for the opening of this meeting for making decisions per all of the items of the agenda is there. Thank you very much for your attention. Dear participants of the meeting, as was mentioned, we've got the quorum, and so the annual shareholders meeting of Bashneft is legal. Let us begin our work. The working bodies of the general shareholders meeting is the presidium, made up of the individuals who are seated at this panel, my colleagues and myself, the chairman of this meeting, Alexander Korsik, the CEO of oil company Bashneft, Alexander Guriev, the Minister for Property and Land Relationships in Bashkortostan, Maurice Dijold, the Non-Executive Director, Tony Considine, the Non-Executive Director, Rustem Mardanov, the Prime Minister of Bashkortostan Government, Viktor Orlov, the President of the public organization, which is the Russian Geological Society, Sergei Sergeychuk, the member of the board, Kirill Andreychenko, Vice President for Corporate Governance and the Legal Issues, Viktor Lisavenko, the Vice President for Finance and Accounting, the CFO of Bashneft, the Secretary of the meeting, Elvira Vyshinskaya, the Corporate Secretary of the company. Please note that according to the General Shareholders Meeting provision, as to the agenda items, one may submit questions to the Chairman and the Secretary only in writing with a compulsory mentioning of the name of the shareholder. So please write it clearly, because we have the right not to consider the questions which are not pertaining to the agenda. Dear shareholders, before we announce the agenda items for today's general meeting, I would like to say a few words on behalf of the board. During the reporting 2015 year, Bashneft achieved very high operational and financial results and demonstrated leadership in the oil industry per a number of achievements. We will hear more about it from the CEO of the company, Alexander Korsik, whereas myself, I would like to touch briefly upon the key issues in the work done by the board of directors during 2015. One of the main events for the company in the reporting years was the endorsement by the board of the long-term development program of the company up to 2020. This strategy envisages a stable growth of operational and financial results against sensible level of investments, guaranteed dividend payment, and is aimed at further growth of the shareholder value of the company. As you know, last year Based on the results of 2014, Bashneft paid the dividends in the amount of 20 billion rubles or 113 rubles per share. Based on the results of 2015, the board recommended to today's meeting to approve the payment of dividends in the amount of 29.1 billion rubles or 164 rubles per share. In this way, the dividend growth in terms of what the shareholders are due would be 45%. In 2015, the company similarly demonstrated not only excellent operational and financial results, but an impressive value growth. So during 2015, this growth was 60%, and by additional 40%, the company grew in its value during the first half of 2016, as deemed by the expert community under the government in the working group in establishing the International Financial Center. Bashneft is a leader in introducing the provisions of the Corporate Governance Code. For an effective implementation of the strategic objectives set forth by the company in 2015, the board approved the program of a long-term management incentivization, which links compensation for the management in the middle and top level with an achievement of a number of strategic objectives, including the growth of the company's shareholder value. Apart from it, an absolute priority in the work by the board remains companies achieving the best industry results in health, safety and environment. In 2015, the company achieved certain successes in this, but there are quite a few other things left to be done, and the board of directors shall continue paying very scrupulous attention to this issue, so people who are working in Bashneft constitute the main value in the company. In conclusion, I would like to say that the board of directors generally is satisfied with the work done by the company in 2015, and the results of this reporting year do show that the strategy is being successfully implemented in the interests of all the shareholders of the company. Now, please allow me to move over to the agenda of this meeting. Today we've got 15 items. The agenda, the first item, approval of the annual report of the company. Second, the approval of the annual accounting report of the company. The third one, approving the distribution of dividends based on the results of 2015. Item 4, the amount, the size and the time for paying dividends during 2015 and identifying the list of individuals who are entitled to receive dividends. The next one is payment of compensation for work done on the board by the members of the board who are not government employees in the amount established by the internal company documents. Item 6, payment of compensation for work done in the audit commission to the members of the audit commissions who are not government employees in the amounts established by the internal company documents. Item 7, defining the quantitative composition of the board of directors. Item 8, electing the members of the board of the company. Item 9, electing the members of the audit commission of the company. Item 10, approving the auditors of the company. Number 11, approving the charter of the company in a new draft. Number 12, approving the provision of the general shareholders meeting of the company in a new draft. Number 15, approving the provision on the board of directors of the company in a new draft. Number 14, approving the provision on the management board of the company in a new draft. Number 15, approving the related party transactions. Voting at the General Shareholders Meeting is being done through the ballots. The ballots for voting were mailed out to the shareholders 20 days before today, and also shareholders had an opportunity to familiarize themselves with the materials and with the pre-reads at the UFA office of the company. Additionally, all of the materials have been uploaded to the official website of the company in their electronic form, also forwarded to the nominal holders of the shares. I suggest that we should now go over to considering the agenda items. First item, approving of the annual report of the company in accordance with Item 2, Article 154 of the Federal Law on Joint Stock Companies. At the General Shareholders Meeting, in a mandatory way, should be considered the annual report of the company containing the basic information about the operations of the company based on the results of the reporting 2015 year. The annual report has been preliminarily endorsed by the Board of Directors on April 26, 2016 and recommended for the approval at the General Shareholders Meeting of the company. In accordance with the requirements of Article 3 of the Federal Law on Joint Stock Companies, the shareholders had an opportunity to see the text of the annual report at the location of the company location as well as at the UFA affiliate of the registrar company. Similarly, the text of the annual report was placed upon the official website of the company 30 days before the meeting and electronically forwarded to the nominal holders of the shares, making it possible to familiarize with the text through this registrar. And for the purpose of hearing the report, we are now going to listen to the CEO of the company, Alexander Korsik. Dear friends, good afternoon once again. The main issue of the annual report, whether the company has done a good job or not. It was pleasant for me to hear the view of the chairman of the board who said that everything was okay, but I believe that there is just one criteria which makes it possible to say whether the company did a good job or not. This is the amount of money which the company has earned for its shareholders, for the owner of each share. This is the amount of money which is either expressed in dividends or in the growth of the value of shares, which has been taking place in the case of Bashneft shares. So, as far as this indicator is concerned, in 2015, we are the leaders amongst all of the Russian oil companies, and I believe this is the main result which definitely states that we're not worse than others, and I would even say that better than others. Whether it was an easy year or not, on the one hand, seemingly it was a difficult one because the oil price declined heavily in US dollars, the ruble exchange rate was changing, there have been a lot of uncertainties, but we were aware of what was going to happen with the markets, which created a bit of a concern and worry. But to say that everything was extremely difficult wouldn't be correct, because Bashneft has been evolving as a company throughout many years, and during the recent years, I believe that we have been able to create the kind of company which is capable to tune itself to any kind of an environment, be a better, a good one, and even the worst possible one. And it seems that nothing bad will happen to the company. Why? Well, I guess that there are three factors. The first one, we have a very professional board of directors, the kind of the board which quite often doesn't make the management's life easy, raising the kind of issues that very often neither myself nor my colleagues have an answer to, forcing us to think hard, to run faster. But on the other hand, this is not the kind of the board of directors which is micromanaging, which quite often helps us to find the proper solutions in difficult situations. And so I believe this is very significant, because in the company we see this real professional interaction between the board members and the executives of the company. Now, the second element which enables us to say that in any environment the company is going to be okay, I would say a certain corporate culture which has evolved during the past few years, and in accordance with which almost every person working in Bashneft before doing something thinks about the way it might affect your money and your income and the value of company shares. And this is the key thing. People don't think about trying to just produce 1.5 more tons of oil or to refine more. They are thinking about the end results and the way it might affect your purse, and that is the token of success. And the third thing, during the past few years, we truly have created the kind of company which can persevere through any situation and adjust to any situation, and whether the situation is bad or good, to continue earning the kind of money which will be not worse than amongst our competitors, but even better. So What are the main results of last year? First of all, as always has been during the past few years, and that has become a tradition, production of oil has been growing in Bashneft faster than in anybody else's case, more than 10%, I would say 12%. Nobody else can demonstrate such statistics, and our financial results have been growing. Last year, we earned considerably more money than in 2014, and this is something that you definitely see in your dividends. Effective mature field management, I would say this is the reason of our particular pride. When talking to investors, I'm telling them that we've got fields which have been working for over 84 years. They're very much overcome because they can hardly imagine how can one not only produce from such a field but also continue raising the output. But that is happening year in, year out. Every year we're saying that our task is to maintain our production at the previous level at our mature Bashkortostan fields, but every year we're doing it a little bit better. We are growing this production, and it seems to me that this distinguishes Bashneft compared to other companies. We've mastered very well to do this. The same happens at our greenfields. This is Timan Pechora, Trepsen Titov, and Bashneft in the Western Siberia, which we bought in 2014. Everything is going according to plan, everything is normal, production is growing, wells are being drilled. Money, as the result, are being earned for the shareholders. Our refining. Last year, the refining encountered very complex situation because, as the result of the changes in the taxation system, we were expecting that there will be a serious financial blow dealt to refining. But despite that, we not only were able to keep that blow, but to completely avoid the consequences through the fact that our refining is currently going through the kind of development that it may fit practically into any taxation system and into any market environment, which is exactly what has been done through a very hard effort undertaken by the people in the company who are responsible for refining. Financial standing of the company. As I mentioned, last year was quite an uncertain one about its company's future, so we were very conservative and very mindful of always making sure that we have money. Just in any case, we didn't take any extra loans. We were very much watching over the kind of money that we're earning and spending, and I can tell you with full responsibility that at every point, the financial standing of the company was absolutely stable, and I can assure you that that is exactly the way it will remain in the future, because the system has been put into place which enables us to support this financial standing. And finally, another result, which may not be the most important, these are the dividends that we are intending to pay. And every year we're paying a decent amount of dividends compared to others. And this year, if you make this decision, and I'm sure that you will, the dividends again will demonstrate growth. And hopefully we will continue earning enough in order for our shareholders not to feel sad when they see the amount of dividends due to them, but will feel happy. A little bit about the company's geography. I can only say that it ceased to be a regional company a long time ago. It's the national federal company. We're producing in 5 regions. We've got retail stations in more than 20 regions. But nevertheless, Bashneft is the oldest Russian Bashkirian company. Bashneft is the brand, and the word Bashneft, I believe, may sound proudly along many years to come. Now, what happened in production? On the right chart, you see our production profile covering 3 years. You see that we started producing more than 30%. In mature fields, the production is growing. We're following the plan at Trepsen Titov. We are very much according to plan, even a little bit faster in the asset which we bought in the Western Siberia, which is Bashneft, but which is very important that we are not sacrificing our future. If you take a look at the left chart, you can see that every year we are adding more reserves than we extract from the subsurface, whereas in 2012, per every 100 tons of oil produced, We added 123 new tons of reserves. This year, this reserve replacement ratio is even better. Per every 100 tons, we added more than 400 tons, which means that throughout many years, there will be something for the company to produce, and there will be a source for us to earn money. Refining, the so-called Nelson Index, it talks about the complexity of the work done by the refineries. Well, the complexity of our refining and the Nelson Index is not the end to itself. Our task is to have the kind of refineries which can operate under any condition and earn money, and so in a rational way. This may happen only if our refineries are modern, state-of-the-art, complex and very flexible, which is exactly what we've been able to achieve as the result of the upgrading which throughout 10 years Bashneft has been doing, and as the result of this modernization, which during the recent years Bashneft has been very much working on. So whatever we have today is not only the things which have been produced back in the days of the Soviet Union, as many are habitually thinking. These are the things which we did ourselves during the past 2 years, and actually last year we reduced the amount of refining by more than 10% in order for our refining to earn money. Otherwise it would have been impossible to do so. And the amount of gasoline and diesel remained at the level of 2014. And it is all because we did this upgrading, and the output of the lighter products grew almost by 80%, which is a very serious result. You are very well aware that we produce motor fuels, gasoline and diesel in accordance with Euro 5 standards, 100%, and what's very important, every year we are growing the output of gasoline and fuel which we are able to sell through our retail stations, which means that when we sell through our retail stations, we are able to keep all the money in the company. Now about money. Last year, the operational profit grew by 34% almost. The net profit also grew, and this growth of the operational and net profit enables us this year to work with high capital investments and lay the new foundations for the future, and at the same time feel confident in terms of our financial standing and be able to pay the kind of dividends that we intend to pay. Dividends this year will be 164 rubles per share, and I believe that you will make this decision. This is 50% of the net profit, and I believe that nobody amongst our competition are paying that much. I may be mistaken, but this is the figure that we can feel proud of, and the one that you as shareholders should enjoy. Myself as well, because as of recent times I am the minority shareholder in Bashneft and enjoy saying in the same way that 50% of the net profit is allocated for the dividend payment. Social responsibility. We live not in an empty space. There is the environment around us, cities, people, our employees, other companies' employees, their children, fathers, mothers, and quite naturally, we as the rest of the country are fully responsible before them, responsible for our nature to be normal, for people to be able to breathe clean air, but in the first place we are responsible for paying taxes. And we've got considerable taxes, 230 billion rubles Bashneft paid last year, and out of this 233 billion, the budget in Bashkortostan received more than 20, and this is much more than anybody else amongst those who are taking the second, the third and other places in the ranking in terms of the amount of taxes paid into the Bashkortostan budget. Besides, we have very serious social programs overall in Bashkiria, and not only in Bashkiria but also in other regions. We are allocating for these purposes almost 2 billion rubles, and you know the way the system is organized. I believe that you, as shareholders, shouldn't spare this money, because this money indirectly anyway goes towards your children, because this money is being spent for schools, for road maintenance, for sports. I can give you an elementary example. When several hundred kids are playing football under the auspices of Bashneft production company. They're playing football not to come up with a stronger Russian national team at the next World Cup. They're playing football not to stay in the streets and not to take to drugs. And I believe this is a great achievement. And another topic that I've slightly touched upon, which is the environmental protection and the labor safety. On the environment side, we are undertaking serious steps. We are far from being ideal. Like any industrial operator, we do leave a bit of an impact, but we're trying to minimize it as much as we can through using the state-of-the-art technologies and by spending serious amount of money for various measures. A couple of examples. Biological purification technology, which would enable one, in terms of the water that is a product of refining, comes out much cleaner than the one in the Belair River and saves several billions of rubles. This is the pipeline integrity program, which radically enables one to reduce the number of oil leaks. This is the program for utilizing associated petroleum gas, where we're confidently closing in on the figure, which is the mandatory one right now, which is 95% utilization. Now, speaking about the labor safety, unfortunately here I must state that despite all of the efforts undertaking, the results currently are far from the ones that we would like to see. One may talk about any objective reasons behind it, but when amongst us or amongst other contractors there are fatalities, then something is wrong. We are trying to create the kind of conditions. I mean, you can explain certain things by the fact that people are different to their lives, but only we can change things around. And that is why this issue is #1 priority this year, next year, and for the next few years to come, because we want to achieve the kind of an outcome that people understand that their life, their well-being and their health is the biggest value, so that the children may feel and see that there will always be their bread earners around, able to support them in their future lives. We've learned to earn money, we've learned to produce oil, so once we learn to work in such a way that our people always return safely home, one may consider that we have achieved the kind of level that we should achieve. Now, what are we going to be doing next year? I mean, I mentioned the agency. Production at mature fields, the same kind of a goal to maintain it at the achieved level, whereas previously we were talking about the level of 15 million tons, we're currently talking about 16.7 million tons. This production growth at Treps and Titov field, this is continuing growing production from Bashneft gases field, and this is the exploration which supports the reserve growth and our future. This is the exploration in Bashkiria, this is the exploration in Timan-Pechora next to Treps and Titov, and this is the exploration in the western Siberia next to the Sorovskoye field, where our main production is taking place. And by the way, I am not going to run ahead of things, but our partner and colleagues, the first vice president from Lukoil, Mr. Maganov, at the Lukoil shareholders, mentioned that in the Bashneft and Lukoil's joint venture in Timan-Pechora, there is an expectation for some serious discovery. I'm not going to say that he is wrong. In refining, it should be supported at an optimal level, not more, no less, at exactly the level which would enable us to produce the biggest amount of money for the company and for the shareholders. We shall continue to modernize our refineries, as life has demonstrated. Whatever we had conceived several years ago, and whatever we have achieved so far, makes it possible for our refining, if not to be the best in the country, then amongst the best in the country, and we shall continue moving towards that end. Currently, we are building another delayed coking unit, and once it is commissioned into operation, which is going to be 2020, Bashneft will cease to produce fuel oil. There's going to be only good, high-added value products as gasoline, as diesel, as jet fuel, and the rest of it. Petrochemicals. Ufa Org Synthos, to our great joy, as they say, returned into the family, and Ufa Orgsintes last year and this year is demonstrating excellent result. It produces quite a sizable amount, not only of product, but money as well. And we shall continue to improve its operational efficiency and produces certain modernization activities which would enable us to achieve good earnings from the petrochemicals. The expansion of the retail network, approximately have 570 right now, and as I said, we need gasoline stations very much so, because whenever we sell our gasoline through our own gasoline stations, we do not give our money to anybody. We keep it all. Apart from it, we intend to develop this in Russia, and those companies who will have the biggest amount of gasoline networks will be in a better position in terms of the future uncertainties. And so, obviously, this gives us an ability to maintain stable financials. Under no circumstances we shall do or act in such a way which would impose doubts upon the financial stability of the company. This is your money. This is what the company has earned through hard labor, and we will do our best in order to not only preserve it, but also to expand it. And so, dear friends, this is about it. I'm very appreciative to you for your patience. I believe that I've spoken longer than was necessary, but I simply wanted to draw attention to the kind of things that I stated. In case you have any questions, please submit them in writing and I will do my best to answer them. But overall, I believe that the company did a very decent job, and I have not the slightest doubt that that will continue in the same way this year, the next year, and for many years to come. Thank you very much. Thank you, Alexander Leonidovich. The second item of the agenda of the meeting, approving the annual accounting report of the company, we will hear Alexei Lisavenko on that item, please. Good afternoon, dear shareholders. In accordance with Article 48 of the Federal Law on Joint Stock Companies, the competency of the General Shareholders Meeting has in it the approval of the annual accounting report, including the report on the financial results. The annual accounting report was preliminarily endorsed by the Board of Directors of the company in the end of April 2016 and recommended for the approval by the General Shareholders Meeting. The annual accounting report was preliminarily disclosed through the website of the company in due period of time, and all of the interested parties have had an opportunity to preliminarily familiarize themselves with it. Like with the auditor's review and the work done by the Audit Commission, I shall note that based on the results of verification of the reporting, the auditors didn't identify any facts which may point to the unauthenticity of the financial reports. So this report, in all of the material aspects and elements, reflects objectively the state of affairs in the company based on the results of 2015. So the draft resolution is to approve the annual accounting report for 2015, please. Dear shareholders, please vote. We are moving over to considering item 3 of the agenda, approving the distribution of dividends by the company based on the results of 2015. Alexei Lisavenko will be speaking. Dear shareholders, the decision on this particular issue in accordance with the Charter is to be done by the General Shareholders Meeting based on the recommendations by the Board of Directors. Based on the results of 2015, the company earned the net profit, calculated under the Russian accounting standards, in the amount of 52,306,523,000. In accordance with Article 65 of the Federal Joint Stock Company legislation, the Board of Directors of the company issued recommendations for the distribution of profit. When preparing it, the regulament on the dividend policy was taken into account, the one which was endorsed by the Board of Directors on October 2nd, 2015, as well as the Russian government decree regulating the minimum amount of the profit of the company with the government ownership to be distributed for the dividend purposes. The draft resolution. The net profit by a public company Bashneft in the amount of 52,306,523 306,523 rubles earned as the result of its operations in 2015 to be distributed part of the net profit in the amount of 29,132,058,200 rubles to be allocated for dividends, another part, which is 1,419,200 to be allocated into the reserve fund, while the remaining amount to be left unallocated. Dear shareholders, please cast your votes. This is the most important issue of our agenda. Let's move over to considering item number 4 of the agenda, the size of the dividends, the time frame for its payment, based on the results of the company's operations during 2015, and identifying the date by which the individuals are to be defined which are entitled to receive dividends. Alexei Lysovenko will be speaking again. Dear shareholders, this is the issue that very particular attention is always paid to it by all the shareholders. On May 26, 2016, the Board of Directors issued a recommendation to the General Shareholders Meeting as to the size of the dividends, the time frame and the form of its payment. It recommended to pass the following resolution: to pay dividends for ordinary shares based on the results of 20 reporting year in the amount of 164 rubles per one share. As to the preferred shares, based on the results of 2015, the dividend payment should be 164 rubles per share. To establish the date by which, according to the dividend payment in the announcement of the dividends, the individuals are defined who are entitled to receive dividends against the public company Bashneft shares, July 15, 2016. The amount of payment to the nominee shareholders who are professional players in the securities market and the legal representatives who are registered in the shareholder register should not exceed 10 days, while other shareholders registered and individuals registered in the registry 25 working days by the date by which the individuals are defined who are entitled to receive dividends. Let me remind you that in accordance with item 4 of the Article 132 of the Federal Joint Stock Companies laws, the amount of dividends may not exceed the amount recommended by the Board of Directors of the company. Let us vote to define the size of the dividends, the time frame and the date by which the individuals are defined who are entitled to receive dividends for 2015. Dear shareholders, please vote again, and we shall move over to considering item number 5 of the agenda, payment of compensation for the work done on the Board of Directors to the members of the Board who are not government employees in the amount established by the internal company documents. Alexei Lysovenko will be presenting. Dear shareholders, in accordance with item 2 of Article 64 of the Federal Joint Stock Company legislation, following the decision of the General Shareholders Meeting, the members of the Board during the period of their tenure may receive compensation related to enacting the authority of the members of the Board of Directors. The size of such compensation is to be identified by the General Shareholders Meeting. The resolution by the General Shareholders Meeting of the company as of June 30th, 2015, established the amount of compensation payable to the members of the Board in the new draft. On the basis of this particular provision, the non-executive members of the Board and members of the Board who are not the government employees, the professional and legal representatives, are due the following amount of compensation: the fixed compensation and the compensation for participating in the work of the committees under the Board of Directors, the third based on the results of the work done within the calendar corporate year. The amount of such compensation is to be defined in accordance with the methodology written into this provision. The non-executive members of the Board are payable monthly a part of the fixed compensation and quarterly compensation for the work done in the committees under the Board of Directors. The legal representatives, in terms of the fixed compensation and the work done in the committees, are to be paid as a single-time payment not later than 20 days after the General shareholders meeting in order to further incentivize their work and undertake other activities facilitating the market capitalization and investment attraction of the company. The members of the board are also payable based on the results of the work done no later than 20 days after the general shareholders meeting. The amount of this compensation is distributed depending upon the dynamics of the market capitalization growth and payable only if the company earns net profit based on the financial results of the year defined under the international financial reporting standards. Now, since the company has earned net profit and based on the statement provided by the Moscow Exchange, based on the market capitalization, Bashneft has demonstrated the best results amongst the competitors, taking the first place. We ask the shareholders to approve the payment of compensation for the work done on the board to the members of the board who are not the government employees, the amounts established by the regulation on compensation. You have the calculation of that compensation in your handouts, and the total amount of compensation for non-executive directors in 2015 will be 11,575,000 rubles, for the legal representatives 8 million rubles. So the draft resolution on that particular item to pay for the work done on the board of directors to the members of the board of directors who are not the government employees in the amount established by the provision on payment and compensation payable to the members of the board of directors of the public company, Bashneft. Dear shareholders, please cast your votes on item number 5. Thank you. We shall move over now to considering item 6 of the agenda on paying compensation for the work done in the Audit Commission to the members of the Audit Commission who are not government employees in the amount established by the internal company documents. Alexei Lysavenko will be presenting. Dear colleagues, the decision of the General Shareholders Meeting of the company has endorsed the regulation on the compensations payable to the members of the Audit Commission, which was June 30th, 2015. The amount of compensation is defined in accordance with the methodology established within this particular reglement. According to point 2.2, this amount of compensation is 15% from the compensation payable to the members of the Board of Directors, which is 750,000 rubles. For the chairman of the Audit Commission, there is an additional compensation in the amount of 150,000 rubles. Compensation is payable as a one-time payment on the basis of the General Shareholders Meeting decision. The shareholders are asked to approve this particular decision for the work done in the Audit Commission to the members of the Audit Commissions who are not the government employees in the amount established by the internal company documents. The pre-reads have the calculation of that particular compensation, which is compliant with the current regulations. The draft resolution to pay for the work done on the Audit Commission to the members of the Audit Commission who are not the government employees in the amount established by the regulation on the compensations payable to the members of the Audit Commission of public company Bashneft. Dear shareholders, please vote. We shall now move over to considering item number 7 of the agenda on defining the quantitative composition of the Board of Directors. Kirill Andreychenko will be speaking. Please. Good afternoon, dear shareholders. As to item number 7 of the agenda, first of all, we suggest that we should approve the quantitative composition of the board of directors of the company which will be working next year. And I would like to note that the proposed number of the members in the board is exactly the same one as we have this year, 10 people. Therefore, I suggest that we should have the same quantity of the members in the board for 2016-2017, respectively for the next corporate year. So the draft resolution is to define the number of members of the board as 10. Exactly. Well, dear shareholders, please vote. Now let's move over to considering item number 8 of the agenda on electing the members of the board of directors. Kirill Andreychenko will present. Dear shareholders, in accordance with the current legislation of the Russian Federation, so there are 10 candidates which have been nominated. We shall briefly describe every candidate who has been nominated So, generally speaking, the same composition of the board has been nominated, the one which has done successful work so far, alphabetically. Charles Watson is proposed to be approved as the member of the board. This is the old-serving non-executive director in the company. He has been working in the company since 2012 as a non-executive director, chairing over the committee, very important committee under the board, which is the Health, Safety and Environment Protection Committee. Yevgeny Guryev, the representative of the Bashkortostan Republic, the Minister for Land and Property Relations in the Bashkortostan Republic. Similarly, he is proposed to be elected into the board. Dijol Maurice, a non-executive director, formerly, in the past corporate year, he chaired over the Nominations and Compensations Committee, and he is proposed as a candidate to be approved as a member of the new board. Anthony Considine, also a non-executive director. During the past corporate year, he chaired over the Audit Committee, and he is being proposed to be approved as a member of the Board of Directors for next year. Alexander Korsik, the Chief Executive Officer of the company, you are familiar with him, proposed as a candidate into the Board of Directors. In case he is elected into the Board of Directors, he will have the status of the Executive Officer, Senior Executive Officer, and no additional compensation apart from his payroll. Being the member of the board, he is not going to get. Then the next candidate is the second Bashkortostan representative, Rustam Mardanov. He is the Prime Minister of the Bashkortostan government. During the past year, he chaired over the Budget Committee in Bashneft company, which, as you may understand, is the most important committee headed by the representative of the Bashkortostan Republic. Vitaly Sergeychuk. Until recently, he represented the Russian Federal Property Agency, currently retaining his position on the board of a number of big industrial companies, and is proposed as a candidate into the board of directors of Bashneft for next year. The chairman of the board of directors of Bashneft, Alexei Texler, first deputy minister of energy of the Russian Federation, representing the Russian Federation on the board of directors. Viktor Orlov is proposed as a candidate to be nominated into the board of directors. Viktor Petrovich has a very serious career. Many may recall that since 1992 until 1996, Viktor Petrovich was the chairman of the Geology Committee and Mineral Resources. As of 1996 until 1999, he worked as the Minister of Natural Resources of the Russian Federation. Since 1998, he is the president of a non-government organization which is the Russian Geological Society. Yuri Shafrannik. He is the chairman of the Union of Oil and Gas Industrialists of the Russian Federation, is being also proposed as a candidate into the board of directors. Since 1993 till 1996, Yuri Shafrannik worked as the Minister of Fuel and Energy of the Russian Federation. So, that makes the entire list of the members of the board proposed, and we ask you to vote for the candidates nominated into the board of directors to work in this capacity in the company in the 2016-2017 corporate year. Dear shareholders, please vote. let us move over to item number 9 of the agenda, electing the members of the Audit Commission of the company. Kirill Andreychenko will present. Dear shareholders, in accordance with the charter of the company and the best corporate practices, and in compliance with the legislation, the company also has to establish an audit commission. The board of directors recommended to the shareholders meeting to establish the audit commission made out of the following individuals who have been nominated by the representative of the main shareholder, which is the Russian Property Agency. The first candidate represents the Ministry for Economic Development of the Russian Federation, Alexei Afanyashin. I believe that I won't read down the list of his achievements because the information about every candidate has been disclosed in a timely manner. The next candidate is the representative of the Russian Property Agency, Oleg Zinkov. The next candidate, the chairman of the Audit Commission in the former composition, Boris Lubashits. He is a professional auditor. The next candidate, Andrei Novakovsky. Many are familiar with him. He is the managing partner of the Linia Prava legal company. And the representatives of the Ministry of Energy on the Audit Commission, Alexander Bogashov. So we propose to form the Audit Commission for the company for next year, made up of the above-mentioned list of candidates. Dear shareholders, please cast your votes for this draft resolution. We move over now to consider the next 10th item of the agenda, approving the auditor of the company. Alexei Lysavenko will present. Dear shareholders, in 2015, the company undertook a tendering procedure in the form of an open auction to audit the consolidated IFRS reporting and the Russian accounting standards report for 2015, 2016 and 2017. The tender was won by the Deloitte & Touche CIS, closed joint stock company, as an auditor for IFRS report, and the limited liability company RSM Rus, auditing the Russian accounting standards report. The shareholders meeting, who have the authority to endorse these candidates on the 30th of June 2015, these candidates were endorsed as the auditors for 2016-15 in accordance with Article 167 for the joint stock company laws. The general shareholders meeting on an annual basis approves the auditors of the company based on the results of the tender held by the company to hold the audit of its financial reports under the Russian accounting standards for 2016. The general shareholders meeting is recommended to approve the limited liability company RSM Rus to do the IFRS report audit for 2016. We ask the shareholders meeting to approve the Deloitte & Touche CIS, closed joint stock company, as the IFRS auditor. Brief information about these auditors have been timely disclosed to the shareholders at the location of the address of the UFA affiliate of the registrar, as well as published on the website of the company. Thank you. Dear shareholders, please vote now, and we're moving over to considering the following agenda items of the meeting. So I suggest that items 11, 12, 13 and 14 should be considered altogether because they are related with each other. Here we're talking about the approval of the charter of the company in a new draft, approving the reglement on the general shareholders meeting in a new draft, approving the provision of the board of directors in the new draft, and also approving the provision on the management board of the company in a new draft. Kirill Andreychenko will present. Dear shareholders, The need to update the charter and various provisions of the company which regulate work done by its management bodies came about because of two reasons. The first one, because of coming into force as of July 1st, 2016, of the key amendments into the federal law on joint stock companies, and secondly, because of undertaking various measures in compliance with the plan of action to introduce the key provisions of the Corporate Conduct Code into the operations by the public oil company Bashneft, the so-called roadmap, which all public companies in the government ownership are supposed to follow. The text of the draft changes have been disclosed on a timely basis and made available to all of the shareholders. These changes are going to be introduced in a due way if the meeting approves them, both into the charter of the company as well as into the provision of the board of directors and the general shareholders meeting, the management board of the company. So this is the end of my report, which gives us the entire list of all of the changes which we would like the shareholders to approve both into the charter and the internal company regulations. Thank you, dear shareholders. Please cast your votes as to items 11 to 14th of the agenda and the items that have been just presented to us. Let us move over to considering item number 15 of our today's agenda on approving the deals which are the related party transactions. Kirill Andreychenko will present. Dear shareholders, we offer to your attention 4 deals, and I will describe briefly each of them, identifying material characteristics. The first one is the related party transaction with the Transneft company, which is a natural monopoly in the Russian Federation, which transports oil through the system of oil and refined product pipelines in Russia. Let me put it this way. In a number of cases for the company Bashneft to be able to transport its oil all the way to the end buyer, there is practically no alternative, and that is exactly the criteria of materiality that this particular transaction has been brought forward to your attention. Besides, this is the related party transaction because in Transneft company there is also the government, Russian government, which owns the controlling share of stock through the person of the Federal Property Agency, and so the transaction between the two affiliate structures, subsidiary structures, such as the Bashneft and Transneft, is a related party transaction. So we move to approve the deal with Transneft for the transportation of oil and refined product for the period as of January 1st, 2016 till December 31st, 2016, in the overall amount of this transaction not to exceed 25,800,000,000 rubles. Now, the details of this transaction is something that you have in ballot number 6, item 15.1. The next 2 transactions are interrelated. This is the transaction between Bashneft with our subsidiary entity, which is Bashneft Polius, which is performing an enormous amount of work to develop Treps and Tito field in the Nenetsk Autonomous District. The first transaction is the one related to the refining of the hydrocarbons. This transaction has been brought about in many ways by the requirements and the conditions of the license which the government gave us to develop Treps and Tito field. And the second, related to this one, is for the supplies of the petrochemicals products and the refined products. We take the oil, which is produced from Treps and Tito field, we refine it, and give it back to Bashneft Polius, which is the refined products. So this is the series of interrelated transactions, the related party transaction overall, and the key characteristics you have in ballot number 6, items 15.2 and 15.3. And the fourth transaction, this is the transaction which has been brought about by the requirements of the best corporate governance practices, which is the members of the board liability insurance and the liability insurance for the senior executives of Bashneft from the risks of wrong decision-making. This particular liability insurance is part of the mandatory requirements for all of the public companies, and we have been adhering to this particular requirement for quite some time now. We ask you to extend the insurance coverage for the subsequent period because of this one expiring. So these are all of the transactions that we ask the General Shareholders Meeting to approve. Is this it? Dear shareholders, please vote. We're going to complete the voting, and I would like to make sure that we can do this. Very well, dear colleagues. Now we have finished the last item of the agenda, and I would ask the Audit Commission to stop registering the meeting participants, and we will now have the information about the number of votes who is owned by the individuals who have registered and who are participating in the meeting by the time that the last agenda item has been completed. We will hear about it from Nikolai Abramov, who is the chairman of the Audit Commission. Dear shareholders, the final results of the registration of the shareholders for the participation in this meeting. The General Shareholders Meeting of Bashneft has been attended by the shareholders who own 134,722,990 voting shares, which amounts to 91.12% of the outstanding voting shares of the company. As to the first part of item number 15, which is related party transactions, the number of votes unrelated to these transactions amongst shareholders is 45,771,611 votes, which amounts to 77.72% from all of the unrelated to this particular item votes. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. Dear participants of the meeting, please pass over to the Audit Commission members your ballots. I shall remind you that the ballot must be signed by a shareholder. The unsigned ballots will not be valid. I ask the members of the Audit Commission to collect the ballots from all those who have voted, please. Dear shareholders, voting is over, and I ask the Audit Commission to start counting votes, and we will now be answering the questions which we have received from those in the room. I will start from myself. I received a question from Rashid Rezyapov, the company shareholder. The company is in the government property, and as long as the company is owned by the government, the board of directors, whether the board of directors has ever considered paying dividends for the first half of 2016 in order to support the budget of the Russian Federation, the answer is negative. No, we haven't considered it. Well, I suggest that Mr. Kosik, you will begin, and then we will just do it in a free way. Who gets the microphone will ask the question. Dear friends, I sometimes may be mistaken when reading your names aloud. Don't take offense. An employee of Ufa-Neftehim, I believe it's Bekmetov. I worked at the factory for 40 years. This year we celebrate 60th anniversary for Ufa-Neftehim. Will there be any bonuses paid on that anniversary? We will definitely be celebrating all of the serious events in the life of the company, because we think that Bashneft has full right to be proud of its history. It's a great history, the history of a great company, and so naturally we should be celebrating it, and so there will definitely be certain celebrations and bonuses paid, without doubt. What kind of help Bashneft is providing to the Veterans Council of Bashneft Neftehim? Well, you know that our veterans organization is built in such a way that we have a veterans council at the corporate level. We also have veteran councils at our individual entities, and they interact through the central veterans council, and usually all of the decisions are made centrally through the headquarters corporate council. Now, why Bashneft is not celebrating the Senior Citizens Day like other companies do? Well, we've been debating this particular topic with the Veterans Council. I believe on 3 occasions we have had a discussion, and we came to a conclusion that the senior citizens is a very relative kind of a notion, because some people believe themselves to be senior at 60 years of age, others at 90, while we ought to pay particular attention to supporting specifically the veterans, the people who have worked in Bashneft for many years and who have had sufficient length of service. So if you work for 40 years, you're definitely in this category. And together with the Veterans Council, where I believe all of the current and former employees of Bashneft are well represented, we made the following decision. We shall focus our efforts upon 2 dates, which is the Victory Day and the Oilman Day. And on these dates we will do our best to provide certain help and assistance to the biggest number of veterans possible. Well, you may recall how it was during the celebration of the 70th Victory Day anniversary in the Great Patriotic War. Every veteran of labor or war who ever worked in Bashneft was paid, I believe, quite a nice amount of money by way of a subsistence on that date. And what is important, that apart from the money which the company allocated for this, the employees of the company, nobody forced anyone, were simply asked to please give whatever you can. 16,000 of the company's employees gave to this cause, and I believe this is the great achievement. And this is the token of respect both to our veterans and as respect to the Great Patriotic War. So I guess this is it as far as this item is concerned. The next question, unfortunately I can't see the name underneath it. I guess it disappeared in the process of being passed over to me. But nevertheless, whether Bashneft shall continue funding Salavat Yulive Sports Club and building the mosque in 2016, how much it plans to spend on these plans. Well, the Salavat Yulive Sports Club we are going to fund it. The overall amount of money for this year is approximately 2.5 billion rubles. It's a big amount of money, but I guess that nobody else in the Republic is in a position to fund this particular club, and to leave the Republic without such a sports club would be a wrong thing to do. And so the board of directors and the government, which is the main shareholder, came to a conclusion that it makes sense to continue this funding. Now, with respect to funding the construction of the Grand Mosque, we as Bashneft are not funding the construction of the Grand Mosque. We are not funding the construction of the Orthodox churches, nor of the Muslim, nor any synagogues. We have agreed with the Republican leadership that the money which is being allocated as a charity from Bashneft are dedicated to healthcare, to sports, to kindergartens, and to similar kind of institutions. And as far as the temples and churches are concerned, the Republic will deal with these issues on its own. When the same author, when the infrastructure facilities are going to be transferred to the Bashkortostan municipalities, the ones which previously belonged to Bashneft, well, this work is underway, but very slowly, because there are certain complex procedures that we are supposed to follow. We cannot simply spontaneously make a decision to give this or that building to the municipality, because these buildings belong to you, the shareholders, in the first place, and before we give it to anybody else, we need to really try and research all the possibilities. Maybe we can sell it. If we are not able to sell it, then we would transfer. Another reason as to why it is not happening so fast, because quite often municipalities don't want to take these buildings themselves, so we are forced to keep it. But there is a program like that in place. It is being controlled by the board of directors, and it will continue. Florid Imamudinov. What is the fair market value of the company in US dollars or in rubles? Well, it's a difficult question, but I would like to give you a simple answer. The value, fair value, is the one at which you may buy something or sell something. If nobody wants to buy, that means that it's the wrong value. If nobody wants to sell, it is also the wrong kind of value. So the present value should be the one at which the shares are being traded, which is $7.5 billion or 500 billion rubles, no more, no less. Now, what is the amount of net assets of the company as of December 31st, 2015, either in rubles or dollars? I was prompted here, I was given a cheat sheet because I don't know the answer. 164,332 million rubles. Now, will there be a conversion of the preferred stock into the ordinary stock? We were thinking about it, and this was also discussed at different points in time, but during the privatization, this is practically unreal, and I believe that, first of all, privatization has to take place, and only after that we may revisit this issue. I'm afraid I will read it wrong. A shareholder by the name of Skuidny? How will the sale of Bashneft affect the shareholders in the company? Well, dear friends, you might think that some kind of an evil, stupid shareholder may come who will destroy everything. No, it can't happen this way. If somebody will be in a position to pay at least 7.5 billion rubles for this company, I have no doubt that it will be a proper, able shareholder who will be capable of managing this business. And definitely this government will never allow for there to be anything wrong done about it. So I don't believe that there will be anything changing in the shareholder composition. This is it. Thank you. I've got one question. Kolpikov, shareholder. A question. Ballot number 1 has printed in it, the remaining profit is to be left unallocated. So who is allocating it and where? And that repeats itself every year. Well, let me tell you this way. The law on joint stock companies, the law on accounting, and the chart of the company envisages a limited number of areas to which the profit can be allocated, dividends in the first place, and replenishment of different funds, which company has in accordance with the law and its charter. So today you've seen that a part of the profit has been allocated into the reserve fund. There are certain other areas in case of losses, like compensation for the losses in business. In terms of other areas, there aren't any. So essentially, the net profit which remains unallocated is the source for our financial stability, of the absolute financial stability which the CEO referred to in his presentation, the source for establishing our non-working capital assets, making it possible for us under any circumstances to be able to stay true to our commitments according to contracts and according to the legislation. Alexei Yurievich, may I add a couple of words? The number of dividends, the amount of dividends, is not being defined by whether the net profit is allocated or not. The amount of dividends is defined by how much the company can pay to itself, how much it has earned, how much it has spent, how effective it is. If the company works well, it has money, and it may pay large amount of dividends irrespective of whether the net profit is allocated or not. So this is the requirement of the legislation, of the accounting, but essentially, dear friends, this company's policy and the management policy, it has always been, and the board of directors supports it in that the shareholders ought to receive all the money which the company doesn't need in the foreseeable future in order to invest and continue its current operations. You cannot sit on this money. You shouldn't keep it in the banks. You should give it to the shareholders of the company at every point in time, which is exactly what we're trying to do. So this company's dividend, I believe, look a little better than what other companies offer. Dear colleagues, is there anyone who has signed up for a presentation? None? All right. Dear colleagues, dear shareholders, the Audit Commission has completed counting votes. Now, the chairman of the Audit Commission will be making a presentation. Dear shareholders, the results of voting as to the agenda items of the General Shareholders Meeting of the public oil company Bashneft. On agenda item number 1, to approve the annual report of Bashneft for 2015, 99.9% of the number of the voting shares participating in this meeting. The decision has passed. As to item number 2, to approve the annual accounting report, has been voted for 99.9%. The decision has passed. Agenda item number 3, to pass the decision to allocate the profit by Bashneft, 99.9% of votes were cast for. The decision has passed. Item number 4, to approve the size of the dividend, the form and the timing for its payment, 99.9% of the votes have been cast in favor. The decision has passed. Item number 5, to pay compensation to the members of the board, for has been given 99.1%. The decision has passed. As to the payment of compensation to the members of the Audit Commission, 99.9% of the votes has been cast for. The decision has passed. Item number 7, to define the quantitative composition of the Board of Directors as 10, 99.9% of the votes was cast for. The decision has passed. During the election of the members of the Board, the votes has been distributed individually in the following manner. Watson Charles, 10.59%. Evgeny Guryev, 9.72%. Maurice Dijol, 10.59%. Anthony Considine, 10.59%. Alexander Korsik, 9.76%. Rustam Mardanov, 9.73%. Vitaly Sergeychuk, 9.72%. Alexei Texler, 9.72%. Viktor Orlov, 9.72%. Yuri Shafrannik, 9.72%. All the candidates have been elected into the board of public oil company Bashneft. As to agenda item number 9, when electing members of the Audit Commission, Alexei Afanashin's 99.2% was voted for. The decision has passed. Oleg Zinkov, 99.2%. The decision has passed. Boris Lyuboshits, 99.2%. Andrei Novakovsky, 99.2%. Alexander Bogashov, 99.2%. All the candidates has been elected into the Audit Commission of the company. Agenda item number 10, approving the auditors of the company under the Russian accounting standards, RSM Rust, and the International Financial Reporting Standards, the closed joint stock company Deloitte & Touche CIS. 99.7% of the votes participating in this meeting have been cast for. Item 11, to approve the amendments into the charter of the Bashneft in the new draft, 99.9% was cast for. Decision has passed. To approve the provision of the General Shareholders Meeting of Bashneft, 99.9% of the vote was cast for. The decision has passed. Agenda item number 13, to approve the provision of the Board of Directors, 99.9% of the votes has been cast for. The decision has passed. To approve the provision of the Management Board of the company, 99.6% has been cast for. The decision has passed. Item number 15, approval of the related party transaction. As to the first part of item number 15, to approve the related party transaction between Bashneft and Transneft for 77.44% of the